Stay on waiting for the encore. My guest is Jordan Webster, otherwise known as Mrs. Glass. Jordan is an extraordinary blues talent and performer. With a strong identity and stronger delivery, he spent his young adulthood in two incredible music cities, New Orleans and Austin. Now starting again in the Pacific Northwest, he's dabbling in all new frontiers. Please enjoy my talk with Jordan Webster. Right, Jordan Webster, a.k.a. Mrs. Glass, in the house. Thanks for being here, my friend. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
My pleasure, man. I'm doing pretty good. So we've been kind of jumping into these things with how the COVID thing has been for you, but you are in a very unique situation, and I want to jump into the whole fire thing that you got going up there in Oregon. And if you want a backstory a little bit about your move out there, and then just kind of tell us about the craziness that you've been dealing with over the last few weeks.
Okay. Let's just cover the fire stuff. I guess that happened, or it started going on in Oregon about 2 weeks ago, something like that. Where I'm at, I'm in Newport, and the fires didn't get too close. I think the closest one was the closest evacuation points were about 30 miles away, something like that. But with the fires themselves, I'd say we were in a pretty safe spot. Smoke, on the other hand, totally different story, because it all just blew right over to where we were. I mean, it was covering this entire side of the state. I'm sure you've seen plenty of the pictures.
Yeah.
I have some up on my Instagram, and I think I fed some through my Facebook story. Those aren't with any filters. That was just what it looked like outside.
Yeah. And with the smoke, are you? Is it that you read about it and hear about it's the air quality? Are you getting a dose of that real bad air quality?
Air quality was terrible for about a week where I'm at in Newport. Other places, way worse. Definitely kept all the windows closed. Didn't go outside. All of that stuff.
As the rough patch kind of passed in that area, I know you said you're about 30 miles from the fires themselves. I don't know what the Oregon fire calendar is like. I know California, even though they've had this bad stuff, really the season is just starting for them. Is it a similar prospect in Oregon, or is it kind of you're getting out of the weeds here?
Man, I don't know. This is my first. I've only been up here since August, so this whole fire season thing is new to me. I mean, from what I've heard from people, this is a little more than, or maybe a great big more than what they've dealt with before, or at least in Oregon, California. I mean, I've toured through California during fire season, so I'm not completely unaware of all of it. This was just, I mean, some of this was bizarre. Looking at the sky being bright red, and not just the sky, just everything around you was red. It was I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Hey, Jordan, so it being almost over, I would like to think so, or at least where I'm at. I mean, today, it's very rainy, and I mean it's super windy. I mean, without the rain, the wind is a disaster with the fires, of course. But like I said, I don't know. This is my first rodeo with all this.
Could you do me a quick solid, Jordan? Could you scoot just a little closer to the camera so we get it because I got us panned here, so that's good. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
So why don't you kind of fill us in on your move to Oregon, and was it a direct thing with the whole situation of Corona? Was it something you were thinking about? I think I expressed to you in a message that a move away from Austin is something my family and I had also planned, and now it's been completely kind of rattled by this whole situation, and we're kind of postponing and possibly postponing again and all this stuff. But was it something that was in the works for a while, or was it something you kind of just decided to do on a whim?
I had been thinking uh, about coming up here and at some point moving here long term. I was looking at Portland as the next place to head to. But then I got sick. Ended up in the hospital, um, and then after that, uh, it definitely focused me to want to do something different. It wasn't just an idea to move, uh, you know, out of Austin. It was something I wanted to do, and I was actively uh, trying to, uh, you know, make happen. Uh, then they definitely had some roadblocks with that. With COVID, there were plane issues, and I had the health issues, um, and so I wasn't able to get up here until the end of July. Uh, and I drove up here with my sister. Uh, and I haven't made it to Portland yet because I'm trying to get a driver's license, buy a car, but that is looking to be extremely difficult because of COVID. All the DMV appointments, it's all done by appointment, and the first one that I've been able to get is November 20th.
Oh, geez.
So I mean, it's just it's a whole thing. But I
Yeah.
was planning on coming here. I was planning on coming here no matter what. I just didn't know when. Then I got sick, went to the hospital, got better, and then I just figured, no, I really want to go.
Yeah.
I with something like that, you're like, well, you can, I can die at any point. If I don't like what I'm doing, I should just do what I want to be doing, do something different.
Jeez. Hey,
So,
give me 1 second, Jordan. I gotta. My battery's about to die here.
yeah.
Sorry about that, buddy. I had the computer plugged in, but not the plug into the wall. So, why don't you tell us what's going on exactly with the? That's a pretty big statement to make. Are you doing okay? What's the prognosis? Of course, you don't have to share if you don't want, but it sounds like it's was something pretty serious there.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm physically fine now. So I had pancreatitis, and I don't know how
Mm.
long I had it. It didn't. Because I had this pain in my insides for a long time, and I assumed, this is just what everyone feels like when they're, in their mid 30s and they spend their entire life drinking as much as I did. Um, but yeah, I got to a point I had to go to the hospital. They did, the COVID tests on me. They're like, yeah, we don't know, maybe it's just a bug or something like this. I think it was maybe the second or maybe the third time I went back. Did um, they did blood work and uh, X-rayed my abdomen. They said I had pancreatitis. I was like, oh well, is that like a what do I take for that? And they're like, no, we have to get you into the ICU.
Oh boy.
And I was like, it can't be that big of a deal. And they're like, no, this is a pretty big deal. Like we have to get you in there now. And I was like, I got to run home and shut off my my lights. I was like, how long will I be there? Like overnight? And they're like, I don't think it could be a week, 2 weeks, something like that. I was like, I got to go home and shut off my lights. I'm like, what are you talking about? Mind you, I was, a kind of just delusional
Mhm.
uh, with pain, also really intoxicated. But by the time I got home, it just felt like everything inside of me had disconnected from everything else, and it's a terrible feeling. I called an Uber and just laid in the back, and they're like, "You're going to the hospital?" I'm like, "Yeah, just get me there." And this guy just booked it, thinking, yeah, this guy's got the coronavirus and he's in my car. This is,
Jeez.
but I only stayed in the hospital. I think it was 4 or 5 days. With this, you can't consume anything orally. It's all through IV for maybe it was like I don't know how long it was. It was a long time. It was a couple of days where you couldn't eat anything or drink water. Um,
Oh my God.
but I got home. Got better. I mean, I can't drink anymore. That's just part of the that's the situation with that.
Right.
My body can't. I mean, it doesn't seem like it can handle it. Like it doesn't metabolize it the right way.
Yeah.
My pancreas just doesn't work. Uh, I guess the way that it's supposed to. I mean, I have trouble with just regular food and uh, uh, normal stuff to drink.
Hmm.
But I'm fine with that. I mean, I spent a lot of time drinking, made a lot of mistakes. I was a big asshole. So it's not really something I need or I even really miss that much because of pass with it. But
Yeah, man.
got better, feel better, and came out here. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you're feeling better. Yeah, I didn't have anything as serious as was what you had, but I just through kind of circumstance of stomach issues with alcohol, I've pretty much, I can still have some, but I was getting real stomach problems just from, whether it's the acidity or all the other bad stuff in it. So I've pretty much been off alcohol. In fact, last night I did a live stream and I had my first bit of whiskey in like 6 months or something. And I'm fine. And it was nice to feel that little mini buzz I got from it. But I've pretty much given it up too, man. I hardly drink beer anymore, a little bit of wine here and there, but I definitely did my share as well. And now it's just like, don't really need it. It's I'm kind of, not as quite as serious, but anyway, I'm glad to hear you're feeling better. Well, we can kind of get to more of the, I'm interested on where you were kind of standing with the whole Austin as a city thing. And I know it was good to you, and it's been good to me. We can get to that a little later as well, but I know a little bit about your backstory, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about it. I believe you're from the Midwest, as I am. And I also seem to remember you were in New Orleans for a while, and then you came here after Katrina. Can you give us a little Jordan Webster backstory here, where you come from, when you moved to New Orleans, and all that good stuff?
Yeah. From Iowa. I was born in Iowa City. Grew up in different parts of it. Uh, and went to New Orleans when I was 18. Uh, I just really loved that city. Thought it was, and while I was there, I was like, "Oh, this is just as cool as I thought it would be." And then when I was 20, I guess that's when Katrina happened, and that's how I ended up in Austin. Uh, like I was saying before, I don't drive, and I didn't really need a license when I was in New Orleans. I took the streetcar everywhere, and then so by the time I was in Austin, I didn't really have a way back. I had already gotten a place, and so I just stayed in Austin and never left. Um,
What
and
were
that's
your what were your early music days like? When did you start playing guitar, and who were you? When did the early love of music turn into a path for you? What were your like earliest kind of aside from liking music, what was your earliest like wow music moments? Were you always a blues guy with other stuff that you get into before that?
I played when I was younger in my teens. I'm not sure when I started, but even then, I don't think I was really doing anything. I don't think I was playing the guitar. I mean, sometimes I even look at what I do now. I don't know if I'd totally call it playing the guitar. That's whatever with that. Uh, but I didn't get really interested in doing something with it until I was in New Orleans. Everything up to that was, oh, it's the guitar. The guitar's cool. Cool people
Hmm.
play the guitar.
Hmm.
But yeah, in New Orleans, I started seeing other players and hearing different things and seeing professional musicians. I was like, well, this is actually cool. Um, uh, yeah, and
So
it
you didn't go to New Orleans with like with a path. "Oh, I'm going to New Orleans. I'm going to pursue music and be a musician there." It kind of happened while you were there.
no, I think that's the way I was looking at it, but I looked at it in uh, a naive way, the way that a teenager looks at being a musician as being like, yeah, I'm gonna be a star. I'm gonna be
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm.
People are gonna like me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dress cool, things like that. And that's what I went there with. And I think I left there. I definitely, when I left, I still had those ideas about being a musician, but they were a little different. And I think I looked at music more as what it is instead of a um, a path to I guess
Fortune,
fame.
fame, or
Or
whatever, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I looked at it as, oh, music's actually quite cool, and I can do something with it. And now when I got to Austin, though, I feel I still had some pretty big ideas of like, oh, people being in a scene that's important. Um, and that stuck around for a long time because in Austin you can be in a scene uh, fairly easy, and people like you, and you don't need to travel too far out of the city. Um, and I stuck with that for a while, and that got uh, that, not old. It just got tired or stale, to where I didn't really want to challenge myself or go outside of that realm of comfortable venues and uh, all of that, uh, which I think is something all artists struggle with, feeling confined to what they do or what they're known for doing. I mean, there were definitely periods, really years. Uh, Thinking of the Blackheart, because we shared that stage quite a bit. Where
Hmm.
I mean, I don't remember. I don't even want to say half because it's way more than half. It's at least three-quarters of the shows that I played at Blackheart. I have no idea what I did there, and I also got so accustomed to just playing the same thing over and over. I I mean, I could have been asleep and done these songs, just because it was such a repetitive thing. But that was and that's unfortunate because I feel like I could have done a lot more if I had been a little more focused or motivated and focused to do something more with it. But I was pretty content with the life of playing twice a week, making good money, uh, having local fans, and just being annihilated 24/7. Like I was totally okay with that. That
Hmm.
I I definitely don't have any regrets that I chose that period to do that. But it. sure, I could have done something else, but I didn't. And you
Yeah, I
know,
mean, odds are, you can always probably do a little bit more here and there, but I mean, it still would have been the same show. It still would have been the same, you know, stage for 5 years and playing with the same guys. And, you had a really strong identity. And
mhm,
lots of people try for years and don't reach that identity. You had that identity that was super solidified. So, even if you tamper with that or expand it, uh, it's still, the black card's still going to get shut down, which it did.
yeah.
You're still going to probably get sick of the guys you're playing with as much as you love them. We've all been in that situation. So, I mean, you guys did great work, and, whatever didn't get done, you can take that to the next project if you want or whatever. But I'm also, just to go back a little bit, I'm curious kind of who are your actual, like, who did you draw from? Because obviously Mrs. Glass, which we'll get into the kind of, uh, the story of how that started and everything in just a minute, but that was a really strong Delta blues influence. And I know you threw in a lot of different stuff like, Prince and all kinds of little things here and there, but it definitely had that, R.L. Burnside, Delta thing. Was that always kind of the sound that you really were drawn to the most, or did it just happen to be the sound that you really wanted to implement into your stage persona and sound?
Um, yeah, it's interesting. So the players that I really enjoyed when I was younger uh, had it was Sunhouse and Robert Johnson. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Now, who I loved and what I always wanted, the music that I wanted to play, I always wanted to be Mingus. I was like, Mingus, that's cool. That's that's the music. Like when I think of art and music, that's what I think of. But I didn't have that level of genius to pull that off, and
Right.
it takes a very special type of artist to. I mean, it takes very special artists to do
Right.
anything.
It's genius. You have to be a genius. I mean, that's
Mhm.
genius work right there.
But it's like I do this fairly well, and so that's what I'm going to stick with. This is what I'm good at, and that's what I'm going to go with. And maybe who wasn't a blues guy, he was a gospel guy, but Willie Johnson was like Blind Willie Johnson was.
Love him.
Uh,
Love
like
Willie
that was a
Johnson.
big thing for me when it like the singing and the slide and all of that. That's where a lot of it was focused. It was like Sunhouse and Willie Johnson. That was the big thing. Um,
I love
and
Blind Willie Johnson, man. He is like stone cold. I mean, that is like the epitome of just bone chilling music, man. That
oh yeah,
is. Some stuff you get into later earlier. I was fortunate to get into that pretty early. I think I bought that double disc probably when I was 16 or something, 16 or 17. And it just, man, I love that shit. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you get that stone cold vibe coming through the Miss Glass sound for sure.
yeah, and so yeah, that's where that came from, and it didn't really change. I mean, if you listen to the Mrs. Glass albums, there's different things on there, but I rarely played all that material at the shows. It stuck to it was like a live persona that I used, and that was very much the blues thing. But on the albums, there's other elements of different music that doesn't necessarily fall into the blues genre. And
Mhm.
at some point, I think I just stopped playing all those songs altogether. And uh, yeah, just he did the blues thing at the
Right,
live.
right. You did so damn well. I mean, there's all yeah. I mean, there's lots of songs on albums I have that's just you want to be able to bring them out on stage, and then maybe you do it once or twice, and it's like this is just not it's not happening. I'm not going to keep forcing it if it's not working. So I think
Mhm.
that happens to all of us. But how about your voice? Like, when did you start singing? Because you definitely have a nice, I mean, you have your voice, which is, you can just pick up on little influences here and there, but it's you, and it's authentic. And was that a early, did you start singing early? Did you start singing late and it came easily? Did you have to work hard at it?
No, it was later. So I was already singing. I think when I was in New Orleans, I played. I didn't play that many shows. We did a handful though, and I think I sang some there. A lot of it was instrumental based, if I remember right. Um, it was me, a drummer, and a bass player, and the bass player came to Austin later with me. His name was Blue, and he ended up becoming my drummer, and that was the first group that I had in Austin, and that was the first. That was when I first began singing, uh, like full on, to where you have your chorus, your verse, all of that, uh, and doing you know uh, just the what we think of as singing, and my voice was garbage then. That was the best love in town. Other people really liked it, uh, but I think during that time I was trying to sing like Willie Johnson and Sunhouse. um, I was also super young then. I was 20. Yeah, 20. People like the voice. And I guess the more that you sing a certain way, the more it stays with you. Um, I don't think I really developed my voice until I was about 22, though, which I would look at as pretty late. Um, to where when I first started singing, it was almost trying to sing similar to other people like Willie Johnson or Sunhouse, and then by 22, I had developed my own voice. I feel like, um, and I think it pretty much stayed that way up to probably about 2 years ago. There's certain things I can't do now that I could do when I was, 25. 10 years ago. I mean, I definitely sang better, uh, or I could do a lot more vocally then. Um,
You just push it out more. You had a little bit more of that youth energy, or just certain parts of your voice. Have you ever had any issues? I've been fortunate. I've always taken, well, to back up a little bit, that's not late. That might be late for some. I was even more of a late bloomer. I mean, I didn't start singing until I was 20, and I kind of the same story. Like, I was giving it my all, and people seemed to like it to a certain extent. But looking back on it, I mean, it was dreadful, just dreadful. And I didn't probably have a voice I could stand next to it with confidence until I was 27, 28, something like that. But getting back to what you were saying about you can't kind of do what you did, or have you had any throat issues? I've been fortunate not to have any. I know we both kind of push the vocals, harder than a lot of people with some of that guttural stuff. Is that it, or is it just certain notes just don't come out anymore?
I mean, I've been a heavy smoker for a long time, and uh, yeah, I'm not sure what it is. It's probably
Sure.
elements, and just it changes. I mean, like, look at Elton John. He sings completely differently
Yeah. Hmm.
in his later years than what he was able to do when he was younger.
Yeah.
I don't know if that just comes with being rich and uh, not having to do all the other things
Well, he
anymore.
blew out his voice.
I
He
assume so, because he
he
just
had
kind
to
of.
have a reconstruction or something. He was one of the guys that did that. Robert Plant too. I mean, those first four Zeppelin albums are a different beast than what comes after. I know a lot of people like those later Zeppelin ones later, and I'm always like, personally, I'm like, he just has like it's just a less soulful. It's more nasally, and I like a nasally voice when it comes through the right way. But yeah, that happened to Robert Plant too. But Elton John definitely blew. He had to have a whole re thing for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with me is just a bunch of stuff. I mean, you know how it is. You play every week at midnight in a club and you're hammered, smoking on stage. It just, I mean, it goes.
Yeah,
It goes after a
yeah,
while.
for sure. So I wouldn't mind hearing just a little bit about your experience in New Orleans. You said it was about 2 years, and I've only been through New Orleans, I think 3 times on tours, and I've only seen uh, a night's worth of New Orleans 3 times, and it's I definitely see the allure. It's never a place I've really wanted to live. But were you performing as frequently there as you were in Austin? And you said
No, not
no.
at all. Nowhere close to it. I mean, I probably only played, mm, I don't know, maybe 5 shows in those 2 years,
Hmm.
where it pretty, yeah. I played Le Bonton, Tipitina's on it was like some Battle of the Bands thing, maybe. Like totally different uh,
Hmm.
than what I ended up doing in Austin, which I feel like Austin picked up pretty quick for me once I got here. Um, Whereas playing quite regularly, almost, yeah, all the time. I always played in Austin until later. That's when I slowed down. Um,
What were you doing in New Orleans? Were you
uh,
working a day job, hanging out with? Did
yeah,
you have?
I worked in a restaurant. I did the night shift in a restaurant. I think we closed at like I don't know, maybe like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was doing that. That was fine. That's fun for a kid to do. Um, yeah, and just going out. I don't ever remember not going out or not being able to go out in New Orleans. No, I was, um, I gotta say, underage. That didn't really seem to be an issue at all, though. So, yeah, it was fine. But I'm not a super social person. Um, so I mean, it really doesn't matter where I'm at. It was a very cool city, just visually, and the atmosphere of it was
Mhm.
intoxicating,
Do you think you
nice.
would have stayed there had it not been for the hurricane?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely would have. Yeah.
So was it pretty like okay? Did you get out in time or did you get stuck in it?
We made it to. I want to say we got up to. I might be off with this. I want to say we made it to Hammond, Louisiana, which is not that far out of the city, and that's where we uh, rode out the storm, which was, it was still it was a big storm. Yeah, if you remember, it was a pretty big one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Uh, yeah, did that, and then went to Houston right after that. Stayed with my buddy's parents in Houston, and then his parents let us stay at their vacation home, which is in Martindale, Texas, which is just outside of San Marcos. It's kind of like 900
Mm.
people, and we stayed there for about 3 months. And if I'm remembering this right, they wouldn't let us back into New Orleans because it was a mess. Um, and so we ended up going. up to Austin and renting an apartment there. And by that point, I rented an apartment, so I was in Austin
And
then.
what year was
Like
that? Well, let's see. Well, I don't even remember what year Katrina was, but it was the year of Katrina that you came to Austin.
I feel like Katrina was '06, it might have been '05. Maybe it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
'05. It was such a long time ago, and I know there's people who went through it that they remember every date, and they always will,
Hmm.
because it was so horrible for him. To me, that wasn't my home the way it was to other
Right.
people. I had just moved there. People had generations of family going way back and roots that go super deep. I didn't have that. So yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember the
So,
date.
yeah, no worries. So getting to Austin, it sounds year wise like you were here a good 5 or so years before I got here. And I think I seem to remember Mrs. Glass was kind of just getting, if not just starting, kind of just getting its momentum going as I had just been there for a year or so. I came in 2011, so maybe I was here 6 or so years before you. But did Mrs. Glass start around 2010 or something like that, or was it going on before that? I know you were in a project. What were those 5 years like? I guess before I was kind of aware of you.
Yeah, so the first few years I was in a group, Best Love in Town, and that was me and a drummer who was my bass player in New Orleans. Who we couldn't find a drummer, or we didn't find the right drummer. I guess is what it was. So he switched to drums. Drums. Blue had a very interesting style. He didn't really play the he didn't play a drum kit. He played percussion. So he had a kick drum and a toolbox, this vintage toolbox. It was like it had to have been from '50s, '40s. Just full of vintage tools, and he would bang on it with mallets. He'd flip over a bar stool at whatever bar we were at, flip over the stool, put the toolbox there, bang on it with mallets, and play his kick drum, and then sing uh, with me. And that was Best Love in Town. And however, is Hole in the Wall, are they doing okay, or do they have to close down?
I haven't heard an official close from them yet. I think they're hanging on, but honestly, I have no idea what the state of their finances is. It's obviously bad. Everyone's is bad, but I haven't heard an official close from them, so I think they're okay for the
So
time
we,
being.
we played a lot at Hole in the Wall, at Plush also. And Plush did close, but we would do these really cool things. I think it was Monday nights. It was it was everybody. Um, on Monday nights at Plush, we would play live music. It was like a house club, like house music, dance music, uh, club music every other night. But then Monday night we had live shows there. Uh, that was super cool. That's where
Where
I got.
was Plush? Because I've heard about Plush, but I think it was done before I got here.
Yeah,
What?
it was Red River and Seven, right on the corner. So you like uh, whatever there's um, there's like
Like
a
Swan
leaf
Dive?
side bar. Yeah,
Yeah,
and Plush is right there.
yeah.
There's like beauty bar down there. Plush was on the corner, but every Monday we had these awesome shows, and they'd just be packed. And stupid. We're young and had a lot of fun there. But Hole in the Wall is where we started doing like the real shows. Where it seemed like, and that toolbox that Blue played on is should still be there. We've taken it down a couple of times to do some reunion shows, but it should be right when you walk in to the right. There should be a velvet painting of Elvis, of
Hmm.
Elvis's face. It should be
Hmm.
right above that painting.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I haven't been to Hole in the Wall in a little bit. I used to live
yeah,
right up in that area, and then I moved kind of south, so I haven't been to Hole in the Wall in a couple of years now. But yeah, and so after Love in Town, Best Love in Town, how did that kind of? Did you guys just kind of have a natural, you know, termination? Was there a big blow up, or just kind of we're kind of
yeah.
done?
So when talking about bands and musical relationships, you would definitely say a natural uh, uh, dissolving situation, which is a blowout. Yeah.
Oh,
Which,
good. That's
you know,
more interesting anyway.
yeah, with bands, it's not just like, yeah, this was fun for a little while. Let's not do this anymore. I
Right,
mean,
right.
you have tensions that
Sure.
come to a head, and you're like, I don't know if I can stand you anymore. I don't even, yeah, but and that goes away at some point. But yeah, we had a pretty heavy falling out. But we were able to do some reunion shows with each other over the years. And I did a solo Mrs. Glass album, and I can't remember who came up with the name. It was a mixture between Brian Smith, who was the bar manager at Plush. He was also the lead singer of a band called Like Dogs, which is just a phenomenal band. And my sister and me, it's a Salinger thing. It's from the Glass family. That's where Mrs. Glass comes from. Uh, and I think my sister really pushed for me to do it, and I ran it by Brian, and I was like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "I was like, yeah, but I need a band to do that." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. Just you by yourself. That's what it should be." And I think that's where that name began. And I did a solo album. I borrowed a 58 mic from Plush from Brian and went home and recorded, I don't know, maybe 12 songs on an 8-track Tascam, uh, just guitar and vocal. And that would have qualified as the first Mrs. Glass album. Uh, and then I started putting together players, which ended with Yvonne and Ian
Hmm.
as the original band lineup. Um, During that time, I was also doing another Salinger based name based group, which was Franny and Zoe, which was me and another drummer, Eric Green. And that kind of just fizzled out because I wanted to focus most of my energy on doing Mrs. Glass. Uh, and I feel like that started picking up whenever the White Horse opened is when we started um, doing okay, I
Right.
guess. Which I,
Yeah.
I don't
So
remember when the White Horse opened.
yeah, that was 2012-ish, I think. I think it was about a year after I'd been here. Um, so yeah, I always felt like when I came here and kind of people of your ilk, or when they came, because I've talked to, I think there's a lot of people that came in that kind of, that I know at least, that came in that 5 years before me, kind of that 2005, 2007 range. And I always felt like that time period was kind of, and I'm sure a lot of people who've been in Austin for longer will say differently, but almost like a golden age in a lot of ways, or just a great, great, great time for transients to come in who play music, because it's like there was plenty of the old Austin there. So many of the staples were all there, all the identity, all the infrastructure was there. And it was really at the, I mean, obviously Austin's been growing for 30 years, but it was really at the big turning point where all these new cool venues, and then shortly 3-4 years later, the goal, it was done, but because there was too many. But we really kind of caught a wave, and I think you were just a little ahead of the wave because you were here a little earlier. of just a really nice time in Austin when it was, that old world Austin with this new wave of just exciting new venues and cool spots and cool new neighborhoods were popping up. And obviously you got to take, you were at the White Horse, which was a, kind of, I mean, that's the full, that and the Blackheart were, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, those were like the coolest places in town. They were brand new. They had character for days. And I mean, you were lucky enough to. I mean, you certainly deserved it because you were fantastic and you guys were a great band. But you were really fortunate to be in that time period and also at those venues. And tell us just do you concur with my assessment? And tell us about White Horse and Blackheart and just how much fun that was, especially in those first few years.
Yeah. So leading up to those clubs opening, those were really cool times. That we'll say pre Blackheart, pre White Horse times. Those were fun just because all of us that did move here during that time were so young, and I think it was just fun because we were so young and we had such a big community. And it was a pretty cool community. Well, we thought it was pretty cool, because we were young. We thought we were
Right.
the coolest, people around. Uh, but once, and with that, like we had Dennis and Nate, they were managing the hole in the wall back then before doing the White Horse. But then once the White Horse and Blackheart started rolling, it was it was a totally different thing. Is that then it was like, oh, not only are these the newest clubs, they're also the hottest clubs, and all my friends own them.
Yeah.
uh, so I mean, and that was just awesome, and that's where my big blank period comes in, uh, because I mean, I just did whatever. I don't even want to say did whatever I wanted. I just did whatever. Uh, I don't know if I necessarily wanted to. I just,
It was just
you
a
know,
real comfortable zone.
yeah.
Felt it's just real comfortable zone.
hmm the White Horse was, yeah, both those places. It was just, it's like, what is going on? This is awesome, and they would just be packed, making money. Oh, yeah, it was a fantastic time. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I mean,
and
go ahead.
but and that led to some pretty disorganized. That was a pretty disorganized period in my life. Also, it just felt like a big party all the time,
Right.
and that's how I treated it. So I didn't get a lot done.
Well, nothing
uh,
wrong with that, man. I mean, you were living in the moment, and it was a good moment. So, you were still a young man, and you're still a young man. So, I say, kudos to living that way, man. You're in the moment, you're enjoying yourself, and you're providing really good entertainment for thousands of people. But yeah, that whole Rainy Street thing. I mean, I don't think anything personifies the cool into a sour taste as Rainy Street because it happened so fast and it was such a cool place for a couple years. And then a couple years later, it was completely done. I mean, I don't, it's just a different. I don't know if I think there's still little spots of live music there, but and I'm sure you can have a good time and there's some good food down there and some good entertainment and there's plenty of good people. But I think everyone knows who saw the 0 to 100, rise and fall or whatever of it. It's a totally different beast, and that kind of it's
but
like a
yeah,
microcosm of Austin in some ways.
yeah, yeah, and it was good. They kept making money. They were successful. It's not. It was just. I was getting to the point where I didn't want to do the Blackheart anymore.
Mm.
Just because I hated being on that street. Um, I started really hating Rainy Street. I think with just the type of person I am, it was not my scene. It everything out the Blackheart was a nice little safe spot, and then more people started going there, and they were doing good business. I didn't necessarily like everybody that went in there. A lot of people would come and see me there, and I really liked them. They were fantastic people. Um, I mean, after you play there for like 3 years straight, and then doing a residency, and you have some drunk lady in heels and whatever, and she's like, just getting in your face about what type of music you play, and I'm like, well, you're no, I have these other people here that I'm playing for. I don't care about you.
Right. Of
I don't
course.
need
Yeah.
you. Which I don't know. No, Blackheart had to adapt with the Rainy Street environment. Same with the White Horse. I mean, I stopped going to the White Horse on my free time after a while. Not that I didn't like it. It was just it just wasn't my group of people anymore. I think that was just I was getting older.
Yeah.
Um, Things that used to be fun to me just weren't appealing anymore. I mean, you know, it's just like, watch TV at home, put on my slippers. I feel like I aged a lot uh, faster than some people in the scene, to where I very much value being alone and away from everybody as much as I could.
Well, it's so demanding because guys like us who are fronting a band, um, and your profession is literally a hyper socialized environment, and so I was the same way where I love to play, especially for a packed house or a medium house, and get some booze in my system, get the music nice and loud and crunchy, and just peel the ears back and go. And it's the best. It's the best, but it's so intense, man. Like it's such hyper social environment because you're playing your butt off. There's no green room in these cool bars or any bars. It's you go right from the stage to talking to people, and I talk to you in between sets, and I saw you talking to people in between sets. I had to talk to people in between sets. I had to sling merch, all that shit. It's exhausting, man. It's really exhausting. And once you're doing that, you really have no, personally, it sounds like the same thing, no energy whatsoever for other socializing other than that, because it's so intense and it's nonstop, so
Yeah,
demanding.
and with that, I even got to a point where I didn't want to deal with that part of it either. When I would smoke at the Black Art, I would go to the side of it.
Right. Hiding place. Yeah.
You know which spot I'm talking about. You have the
Yeah.
front, and then you have the back, and then there's that side area that you could walk in between them. Nobody ever really went through there. I mean, I just hide there. I didn't want to. I didn't want to talk to anybody anymore. It's not that I didn't appreciate people being out there, and it's not that I hated them. It was just
It's too much.
overwhelming. And,
Yeah, it's too much.
you know, I,
I'm not a
I just
cigarette smoker. I'm not a cigarette smoker. So what I would do lots of times, if it was feasible, is if my car was parked uh, within a short walking distance, man, I would just go to my car and sit for 10 minutes and just
yeah.
chill out, because it's just so much, man. And at the outset, it's great, man. You want to talk to people. You want them to tell you how great you are, and learn about why they like you, or why they want to buy your CD, or whatever. It's great. And then after a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of that, it's too much. I definitely
Yeah.
know what you mean by that. So kind of transitioning into your fatigue, and taking a few steps back, because you were I remember that stage where you were playing every week, and then it started to trail off a little, and then we just didn't hear and see from you as much. And that's totally understandable. And I think everybody goes through those stages. But where were you in terms of your career? for lack of a better term, or your desire to play or make money playing after that kind of that high point of the black card and between then and now, when you moved out to Oregon just recently, were you just content to chill? I think that you told me you had a day job or two, and were you just cool with that, or were you kind of gearing up for your next push, your next project, or your next whatever, just kind of going with the flow?
I always dealt with substance abuse, and that was a big thing. Went to rehab. Uh, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. I feel like that was when I started backing off of everything. Like I couldn't do the shows anymore, and I'd already stopped doing the shows. I was just doing them so poorly because I was so intoxicated, and it wasn't a good environment. And I didn't want to. There were parts of it where I didn't want to do the music, and that led to me drinking even more. And it was like I don't care how this performance turns out.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't matter to me anymore. I and I after rehab, I had ups and downs, more downs than anything. To the point before I went to the hospital, before I came up here, I went to the hospital. I had I was satisfied with dying. I was like, I'm pretty. This doesn't seem bad. I was like, I had a pretty good run. I was totally, not that I was actively suicidal. It was just I was okay with the life that I had lived. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I did enough. I don't think I need to do anymore. If I were to die tomorrow, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, and that leads to how I behaved when I went to the hospital. They're like, we need to get you into the ICU. And I'm like, whatever. I left Netflix on back at home. And it actually took going to the hospital and having to stay there and what essentially was, almost dying to like, oh, I think I might have jumped the gun on that. Like I probably have some other things that I can do and that I'd like to do. Uh, and there was a long period where I didn't want to pursue music anymore. It's not that I wanted to try something else either. It's that I didn't want to pursue life anymore. I just wasn't interested in it anymore. It was like, at this point, I'll just drink. That was, that's just where I was in my brain, and it took that hospital moment to like, uh, you know, actually, I'm not satisfied with what I've done with life. Let me do something else. Um, which
Was it was it was it always just the booze, or was there other stuff as well?
there's always been other stuff throughout the years. Alcohol's always been the worst thing for me though,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because it's just right there. And I mean, yeah, alcohol is the main horrible uh, problem
Mm-hmm.
throughout my life
You
and,
feel
and my career.
pretty good now with the diagnosis that's forced you to really
Not be able
change
to do it.
yeah, or is there still there's
Um,
still a lure there, or is it like, what, I'm done with it now, fuck it?
yeah, I wouldn't say that it's a lure because I didn't really have that uh, before either. It was just a method of me blanking out everything around me, um, and just everything. Um, but then it was also something for the most part, I was able to accomplish most of my daily routine.
Hmm.
Um, it, and it's terrifying to think. Every time I've gotten sober, I think how terrifying it was to get sober because I'm never been a drinker that takes breaks from drinking. Um, so once I would start drinking again, it becomes a physical dependency extremely fast because there's not the most where there's not alcohol being put in my system is about 5 hours in a night cycle. Um, to where I would wake up and drink like how someone goes and gets a glass of water. Like I would go and get a glass of vodka to go back to sleep. To where I mean, there's just not enough period for my body not to have alcohol in it to where it doesn't become physically dependent on it. And that type of withdrawal is so terrifying to go through. And that's for the last 7 years. That's the type of withdrawals that I would have from alcohol because that's the type of drinking that I would do. Um,
Yeah, I know. I've heard a lot of times that getting off booze is literally one of the most dangerous ones for your body of all the drugs. It's one of the most. I know you can die if you try going cold turkey if you're a heavy drinker and stuff. So when you're finding yourself trying to sober up, I mean, how do you do that? Do you level it off and then and this is just what I've heard. I've heard it many times, but I know it can be very dangerous trying to get off booze.
I I've had to do medical detoxes
Uh-huh.
a few times to where with this last one I was in the when I went to the hospital I was in the process of trying to stop drinking. um it, it had gotten to be so much and I was in so much pain and I didn't know what the pain was. I thought it just had to do with the drinking. I didn't know it was my pancreas shutting down. uh, So I had, and COVID had already started, so I wasn't able to see a doctor in person,
Mhm.
but I was able to get uh, prescriptions for what I would need to uh, medically detox. But the pain had gotten so bad, um, I had already started a medical detox, but the pain was so bad, I didn't know what was going on. To where that last time that I went to the hospital, it was just each time I go to the doctor, I'm very upfront with what my drinking habits are. I
Mhm.
will not lie to a medical doctor. That is, it does not help you at all to lie to a
Yeah.
medical doctor. And I told him like I've been drinking a lot. I don't know what this pain is. I've been cutting off. I've been on. I'm taking Ativan. There were a couple other things I was taking, trazodone, things like this. And like, well, how much were you drinking? How much are you drinking now? And when you get to the point when you drink that, to the point where you drink this much to where it's destroying shutting down your organs, that amount is it's something you can't really wean off of because it takes so much to consume to get to a certain point, um, to stop the withdrawals. It's not like you can just have one drink and you're like, oh, the withdrawals have stopped. You have to drink enough because it's not just your body expects a certain amount of alcohol in its system.
Mhm.
So when you're drinking 2 liters of liquor in a 24-hour period, it's almost impossible to wean off of that because you're still consuming so much just to get over the hump of withdrawing.
Right.
That's when you need a medical detox situation. And this last one, I mean, it was, and that was with the IV, and because I also had the organs that were shutting down. So that was just a whole mess. yeah, that wasn't a normal detox. That was something else. It's something else
Yeah.
I hadn't experienced because I had gone through plenty of uh, uh, medicated detoxes prior to that. Yeah, what was happening in the ICU? That was madness. I'd never. Yeah, that was horrible.
Oh boy. Well, I guess a
But
silver
no,
lining
to
situation,
answer
but
your question, sorry, I am happy that I can't drink because I every single time that I started drinking again within the last 5, 7 years hasn't been it's been because I've been very unhappy with my life and everything that's going on with me. And so I don't have that desire to do that right now. And knowing that if I were to do it again, it would kill me. This isn't
hmm
like, oh, you'd go down that path again and you'd eventually die. It has the potential to kill me, like quickly.
mm,
Uh, so no, I mean I really don't miss it, and I for those last 7 years when I was drinking that much, I just it was because I was so unhappy. I just didn't.
hmm
I didn't want it to. I just didn't want to be around it anymore. I feel
Yeah,
differently with life now. Now I want to
that's
do
good.
something. Now I want to write these Mingus songs.
Fuck yeah, man. Well, that's good to hear, man. It's yeah, that's a whole thing we could delve more and more and more into. But it sounds like you're getting in the right direction and you're feeling good. So it sounds almost like you might be a little indifferent towards this question, but it's one that I've just been kind of thrown out there to a lot of musicians and one who was in the music scene. So had such a nice spot in the music scene for a decade or a little less than a decade or whatever. Did you and if your indifference that just glosses over it, that's fine too. But have you gleaned any sort of not only your personal feelings about where you were and where you were not happy with the repetitiveness or any number of things, had you come to any sort of conclusions or thoughts about what Austin kind of was as you were withdrawing or becoming, or was it more just this is what I feel and I just don't want this anymore? Have you any, because I'm trying, Austin's in this really precarious spot right now, but I think it was even leading up to COVID, it was in a territory that had been growing worse for a couple of years. I think most musicians who worked or work kind of saw that, or with the exception of maybe a few. It was definitely a changing landscape. And did any feelings you had on the city itself lead to that move, or is it more just based on your own trajectory and what you had as personal?
Most of it just has to do with me. The weather. I have weather affects my mood. I think it does with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I have those summer lulls where it's
Mm-hmm.
the heat that really um, it really upsets me and gets into how I emotionally react. And the heat in Austin is, it's intense.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to get out of that, but I was able to deal with that for a long time. Uh, but then once the change in the city started to happen, I just wasn't enjoying it. And a lot of it is with what I was talking about with Blackheart. That's what I've seen everywhere. It's like,
Right.
oh yeah, I mean, you guys got a lot of people here. I just hate half of the people that are in
Right.
here right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the other half though. Like these guys are great, and I'm glad they're here. But who are these people?
Yeah.
And this and that. And I thought maybe that's just me being cynical and an asshole. Uh, and it might be that, or maybe
No, I
it's
mean, there's definitely more to it than that. I mean, it's a palpable thing. There's no question about it. And the infrastructure or economy or whatever you want to call it of the city was changing so fast. Probably still is changing so fast, but that's not just you, for sure. just to be clear. That was, I mean, dealing with the whole, for lack of a better term, the bachelorette crowd. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, anything that goes with that. And just the techification of the city, it really it has been going on for 5 or 6 years, where the identity of the live music capital is changing. It's,
Hmm.
and now it might be completely bankrupt by the end of this thing. I mean, it might be leveled for the foreseeable future in terms of being a live music capital. And there's no question. I mean, most people I talk to would feel the same way. So, not to interrupt you, but just to let you know, it wasn't just you. It wasn't just you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I felt like it was changing, or it felt like it was changing to a way that I didn't want to be a part of the scene
Right.
anymore. It didn't seem like something I was going to be able to adapt to. Um, I mean, most of it was personal with me,
Hmm. Hmm.
eh, but all of that is stuff that I saw and stuff that I dealt with firsthand. Uh, and I also dealt with in not the best ways. Like, oh, I don't like the crowd tonight. I'm getting hammered, uh, and the hell what they think about it.
Sure, I hear you. I hear you. So I'm looking at the clock and noticed I've got had you for quite a while. But just to kind of round things out, what drew you to Oregon? And I know you said you were aiming at Portland. Portland strikes me as, I know Portland. I've been through there a bunch. I've stayed there for periods of time, and it's a super cool city. Seems to have some of the same uh, issues with change that Austin has dealt with, that we've discussed. And obviously now it's becoming sort of this hyper progressive slash liberal fire zone kind of thing. We'll see how that pans out through the election. But were you drawn to the Portland thing, which later became Newport, kind of because it's similar vibe to Austin, but a different part of the country that's not as hot?
No, I wanted to spend a little time in Newport. Anyway, it's right on the coast, and it's a nice place to relax. I don't want to just go from one big city to a slightly smaller city.
Mm-hmm.
I I mean, I still plan to go to Portland. The big thing was the weather. Totally different type of weather, and I I just wanted a new fresh um, market to for my music. In Austin, I mean, I can release new music that's really really different, uh, and then I'll always have people who'll be like, "Yeah, but I like the old stuff better." Here, I just release music to people who've never heard me before.
Mm-hmm.
If they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. I don't have to deal with, you know, yeah, but this is nothing like what you used to do, because I don't know that. I just want new ears, new people.
So are you changing your sound quite a bit, or is your new material is just a slight difference, or is there quite a big change in
No,
it?
it's pretty different. Like
Okay.
it's
And
quite.
what's it like?
Uh, so right now, the last 2 months, all I've been wanting to do is just a jazz album.
Hmm.
No lyrics, no singing. So that's what I've been working on up here. I just play the piano, write the parts, to a point where, and I'm not a good enough pianist to even play the parts. What I'd really like to do is get the material together, get all the music, and present it to some more qualified players.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've been working on just the last month or so. That's been my big focus. But all the other songs that I've written that follow standard lyrics, melody, uh, stuff like that. That's been maybe a little on the pop side,
Mm-hmm.
to where almost a little too much to where I'm trying to shave away the pop elements and glue on something that's uh, something that I enjoy a little more. I'm just trying to make music that really like playing right now,
Hmm.
because that was the big hurdle that I had in the past, to where it's not that I disliked the music I was playing. It was just I had done it for so long. I'm just trying to, you know, uh, revitalize something in me that I enjoy doing, that makes me feel new, in a way.
Well, that's exciting. Just a couple artistic questions for you before we kind of wrap it up. With the jazz stuff, because I like a lot of jazz too, but I just flat out don't have the. I'm not heady enough for it. I don't read music, and I don't. I wouldn't know where to start really. I just don't. And so, are you someone who can read and compose, or are you kind of just how are you putting together those pieces you're talking about?
I can read. I can read and write, but the way that I've been doing these is just by playing them, and that's been the big thing for me. I'll write a section to a piece, I'll play it, play it a few more times through, and then it sparks on you. Uh, I could do something different with that, to where I'll spend a week on one section of one song, a and it's a completely different section by the time I'm done with it. To where, I mean, it'll be a different key, after that week of messing with
Mm.
it. And that's what I've been enjoying doing. Because I'm not trying to I'm not trying to rush out any type of product to anybody. It's meditative to me. If anything, it's more of
Beautiful.
a mental therapy for me.
Hmm. That's
Uh,
beautiful.
it's,
And what
and that's the purpose of it for me right now. Yeah.
That's good. And the pop stuff, when you say pop, kind of a broad, is it border on 80s pop, 90s pop, current pop? What gives it that pop identity?
I it's
Just
See, it
structurally
falls into
pop?
the songwriting, which would sound more like Four Tops, or
Mm,
Smokey and the Miracles, things like that,
cool.
where I feel like it's got in a good spot to begin with. It's just maybe a little too bright for me.
Hmm.
Uh, to where, like, yeah, that's cool, but I don't love playing it. What can I do to make me really love playing this on the piano?
Hmm.
Uh, and that's where that's at. And then those songs end up falling into the same hole, to where they just end up being these kind of avant-garde jazz concepts that I don't even know if they work as a whole song anymore. They just become a section to a potential
Hmm.
piece of music.
Well, cool, man. It sounds good to have that balance of like complicated and simple, genres to kind of dip into as you please. As I mentioned to you, I think in a message, I think I mentioned it earlier in this talk that we're planning to move out west. That's all kind of up in the air right now. Not sure if it's going to happen because we
You were
we were
looking at Los Angeles, right?
correct. Both me and my wife had some interests out there, and we still do, but this is definitely rocked. The whole situation has rocked everything that we were moving out there for, and the bad news about California just keeps coming. So we had planned to move December 1st now, and now we're probably going to postpone that again. And as much as we want to get out there, it doesn't make sense for us to go out there if every reason we were going to go out there is unfunctional. So who
Mm.
knows? Maybe we'll bump into you in the West Coast a year, 2 or 3 or 5 from now. But I'm really glad to hear
I
you.
hope so. I hope
I
so.
hope so too. I hope so too, man. And I'm really glad to hear you're doing good. Sounds like you're doing good. You look good just from the energy you're throwing out on social media. It sounds like you are in a good spot right now. So keep it up, brother, because we'd love to hear what you make, and take your time with it. No rush.
Well, I'll probably be through Austin at some point, in the winter, and I'll let you know when I come through. Um, I mean,
Sounds good,
I
man.
have to get that license. When I get that license, I'll let
Well,
you know.
I guess the final question is, why have you waited so long to get a driver's license?
I never needed one.
Wow.
I just never really needed one. I had,
Wow.
transportation. Once Uber came along, I was like, phew, what do you need a car for? This is perfect.
Oh man. And the only time you want to get it, you can't get it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And this is the way of the world.
That's funny, man. Well, yeah, man, I'd love to grab a Shirley Temple with you or whatever when you come back through
I'm a
town.
sarsaparilla guy, but yeah.
That's for real. That's cool, man. All right, Jordan. Thanks a lot, buddy. Take care.
All right, Sam. Thank you.
All right. Peace.